Okay, welcome to today's provider meeting. My name is Kara Frederick. I'm the Quality Assurance Director here at Butler County, and joining me is Darren Corns. Amy Winkler is the Provider Relations Coordinator, and she's unable to join us today, so she's out. So you're stuck with me and Darren, so we're going to be pinch hitting today. I have a couple of updates for you from our department. So I'm going to go through those fairly quickly, and then we can get on with the rest of our agenda, because we have a pretty packed agenda. We're going to hold you to an hour, though. We're not going to waste time because it's really nice outside, so you guys can get outside. Couple of things. Britco. So I want to go over a couple of things very briefly this morning. Britco. We have, Butler County has launched, and we are working now actively in the Britco system. And we're really excited for that. So all of our departments are now actively working in Britco. And what we understand is that some providers are also working in Britco. So we are going to create a survey. We're going to send that out to all providers, independent and agency, by the end of next week to try to find out which providers are actively working in Britco. And if you would like to join us and connect with our county board in Britco, we would like to have you. So that way you can access ISPs, you can submit incident reports, you can create doc sheets. We can connect our county board to your agency that way in Britco. And if you're not currently a user in Britco, coming in 2023, we are going to offer at no cost to any of our providers an opportunity for you to have a free login to connect to our Britco system at the county board. So that's coming, but it's kind of several months down the road, and we're pretty excited about it. It's a pretty cool system. So that's new, but it's a couple months down the road. COVID supports. So we're really, really excited about the COVID supports that we continue to be able to offer this next quarter at least. Back in September of 2021, the board and our board approved to commit to $1 million in supporting the DSP workforce. And we have not hit the $1 million mark yet, which I think at the end of February, I think our number was right at 312,000. So we are still plugging along, but we still have funds available to support our providers. So we still have funds. So I will send out the reimbursement sheets. Amy will send that out by the end of the week of how to be reimbursed for the overtime. We're reimbursing for the halftime. We're reimbursing for training for new hires, as well as the annual training for any folks that are just the annual training. We're reimbursing, I think, $500 per staff. So please take advantage of that. So once the funds are used up, that's what we have, but we still have funds available. So I'm hoping that that'll last through this next quarter, but we still have funds available. So that's exciting. I'm glad that we still can offer that. And the last thing for myself is we have our Mui Stakeholder Meeting, which will be coming up here March 31st. And I will drop a link in the chat for you to register, but it will come out in the provider correspondence by the end of the week as well. Again, it just analyzes the data from all of our MUIs from 2021. So feel free to join us. And there we go. There's the registration for the Zoom. It's going to be virtual. We hold it to about an hour, and we have the investigative agents on there, and we discuss the trends and patterns from 2021 in the annual data. So those are all of the updates I have so far. And now we can get on with our guest speakers. So I would like to introduce from Pig Abilities, Rick. And if you can unmute yourself, feel free. And I believe I've given you permission. I think you can share whatever you have to share too.
Great, thank you so much. My name is Rick Shoto. I'm actually a volunteer. Retired from the corporate world in November. And when you retire and you're sitting around and your wife's getting tired of seeing you, you find other things to do. So I started getting involved with some nonprofits that I've been involved with. Pig Abilities is one of those that I've been involved with for 4 years. People around the greater Cincinnati area know there's a Flying Pig Marathon that's held on the first Sunday of May. Does everybody agree with that? somebody's heard that somewhere along the line. There was an event, and by the way, the founder of the company I worked for, Paycor, was the founder of the Flying Pig Marathon. So I've been embedded with the Flying Pig since its inception, at least understanding it. What I didn't know, and I'll ask if you could raise your hand or whatever the heck you want to do to give me a high sign. But did you know there's an event on Marathon Weekend for people of all different abilities called Pig Abilities? Darren, give me a thumbs up. Great. Darren, I was part of the marathon. We housed the marathon leadership group in our offices, and I had no idea. And which is, and thank you, Susan, for saying you didn't know that. I didn't know it. Pig Abilities is a 1 mile walk, run, roll, and it's for people of all varying abilities. It says Pig Abilities for a reason, but it's catering to the folks that cannot compete in the 5K, the 10K, and the half marathon, the full marathon, or the other events that go along during marathon weekend. But they can accomplish, but there's a level of accomplishment that they want to attain. I was invited to my first Pig Abilities 4 years ago. One of our associates has a sister that has institutional autism. She was adopted from China. She lives in Milwaukee, and she loves to run. And Mia was probably 7 years old at the time. There was no event that her parents could find that Mia could participate in because of her disability. And so they would drive to Cincinnati and they would participate in Pig Abilities. And Mia just loves it. Everybody gets a medal. It's a celebration. It's not a fundraiser. It's a celebration. And Tim, frankly, just invited me to come cheer Mia on at the beginning. And then if you know anything about the greater Cincinnati area, there's the Banks area right out between Paul Brown Stadium and Red Stadium. It starts right there outside of Paul Brown Stadium. It does basically a loop, and it ends about 100 yards south of that, right along Mering Way, which is right next to the park. That's the Finnish swine. And so Tim said, Rick, please come down, cheer on Mia, let me introduce you to my family, and then run around the corner and cheer her on as she finishes. I said, Tim, that would be fantastic. I brought my wife. It was the most inspirational event I've ever been a part of ever. It was absolutely incredible. The founder of our company, who was going to start the event, shows up 15 minutes early to go grab the microphone. And there's a whole line of participants, and this looks like they're in the starting blocks, ready to go at a track meet, waiting for the gun to go off. And he looks at me and says, am I late? And I said, Bob, they've been standing there for 15 minutes. They are so excited and ready to go. And he just smiled and says, Rick, that's awesome. And then he went over and did his speech. They kicked off the event and everybody took off. That event could take 10 minutes. It could take an hour, depending on what the person's ability is. And that's what's the beautiful part about the event. One of the most inspirational things I saw was at the finish line. There was a young lady, young to me, she was probably mid-40s, she rolled in her wheelchair, motorized wheelchair, got to about 10 yards of the finish line. Her friends gave her her walker, and she finished probably in 5 minutes to go 10 yards, but she finished. And the look of accomplishment on her face, I'll never forget it as long as I live. And it was fantastic. I looked at my wife and I said, I know nothing about this, but we've got to make this bigger. There's no reason why people that have a disability that may not be able to participate in the rest of it shouldn't be part of this event. And I don't have a dog in the fight. As I said to Warren County yesterday, the DD group of Warren County, I'm fortunate and blessed that I'm ignorant about DD because I haven't had anybody close to me that's had any challenges. So I'm blessed. But, and I'll share this with you guys, and I think you guys know this, and this is just my experience, you tend to, when you're not involved and you don't understand and you're ignorant, you tend to deviate from things that make you uncomfortable. And sometimes disabilities can make people uncomfortable. And that was me. I don't deviate anymore. And because I want to embrace and I want to figure it out and I want to learn. And it's meant the world to me. This event has meant the world. Unfortunately, with COVID, we went from 75 participants when Tim's sister started to 350. We're expecting to slide back because of COVID, which I won't accept. And I just won't accept it. And it might happen, but I'm not going to accept that. And what I want to make sure is anybody who does have somebody that wants to participate, knows about it and they can get there, and we're going to knock every barrier down that we possibly can. Cost has been brought up as an issue. It's $15. It's very inexpensive for me, but not inexpensive for people that are living on a fixed income. And I've learned that. That's another lesson I've learned. Anybody that can't afford the $15 will figure it out. The marathon has supported me. I've got friends and family who will support me. I've got business associates that will sponsor folks that can't afford the 15. No problem. We'll take that off the table. Transportation, I know, is a pain. We're trying to figure that out. This year is even more painful because of some of the challenges that are going on, but we'll try to figure that out. Packet distribution is painful. People can't just show up to the convention center on Saturday like everybody else does to pick up their packet. Not that simple. We'll bring packets to groups of people to make it easier for distribution. I've engaged the zoo. I got a call from, anybody ever heard of Thane Maynard? He's the head of the Cincinnati Zoo. Thane sent me an email yesterday and said, hey, what do you need as far as for pig abilities? I just left an inclusion event. I want to be able to support the marathon. So we've got a meeting scheduled with Thane's coming up so that participants can have a couple free entries to the zoo, for maybe a caregiver and a participant. But anything that we can do to get people to understand what the event is, how to engage in the event, knock down barriers so that there's no barriers for them to participate and come down and celebrate. As I said, it's not a fundraiser. That's not what this is about. It's about a fundraiser. It's about trying to celebrate the people to participate in this event and the people that care for them. Does that make sense? I'll share. You gave me a share screen, and here I am just blabbing on. So this will give you a picture of the flyer, and I'll send this out. I'll send this to the leadership, Kara, if that's okay. I'll send this along with, there's a link to the YMCA video from a few years ago, so you can watch that. It's very short, but it gives you an absolute great flavor of what the event is all about, so you can see it and feel it. And like a lot of things, if you show up, I guarantee you'll come back. If you don't show up, you'll just nod your head. I have a personal quest, and I hope this doesn't come across the wrong way, but when I listen to WLW, who covers the marathon weekend, and Channel 5, nothing wrong with WLW and Channel 5. I watch them a lot, or listen to a lot, but they talk about the kids run, which takes place, by the way, right before Pig Abilities. And they talk about the flying fur, people running with dogs, which takes place after Pig Abilities. That infuriates me. They don't talk about Pig Abilities. And it's my personal quest to try to change that. And I think we'll change it with numbers. We'll change it with awareness. We'll change it with registrations and participation. And we'll change it by making sure that the community is coming around us to make sure that it's the event that it's supposed to be, and probably one of the best events during marathon weekend. That's my speech, Kara. I get a little excited and about it. I'm ignorant to a lot of the things that go along in your community, guys. I'll be very honest with you. I'm learning. I'll try to be a sponge for it. All I'm asking is if you can share this information with those folks that could participate, that you share it with them. You ask them to come down. I don't care if you even participate. If you watch this, you'll never stop coming back. I promise you that, because I won't. And I'm like everybody else, I think. So, my job is to drive participation. We've got a completely different committee that's trying to drive the event itself and knock down barriers to participation. And we just want to make it a great event for folks that should be there. By the way, I'll have the link to the video. I'll have a link to the Pig Abilities website. It's part of the marathon website for registration. And there's also there'll be an attachment to the course outline itself. It's frankly just a little bit of almost like a U shape. Starts at Paul Brown, ends just south of Paul Brown on Mering Way. And again, we're going to do everything we can to knock down barriers and make sure you get all the support you need to participate. I'm driving participation and registration as much as I possibly can.
Thank you, Rick. That sounds really cool. I've never heard of it, so I think that's really neat. I think we can try to get our public relations coordinator too involved, and Patricia does a really good job connecting and trying to connect that to our PR around here. So maybe we can get it advertised for you as well.
I really appreciate that. I'm trying the corporate side. I'm trying the nonprofit side. I'm trying every way I can possibly figure out to make sure the story is known. And so you know about it, and you can make a conscious decision whether you want to attend or not.
Yeah, definitely. And if you haven't already, send that link over to Amy and that flyer, and we will make sure that we get that out to all of our providers, those that are on the call today, but also to all of those that couldn't make it today.
That'd be wonderful. And guys, I thank you for what you do. Again, I'm ignorant, but I'm learning quickly. And I just want to say thank you for what you do. That, as I said at the very beginning, I was ignorant because I didn't have to be educated. And now I'm not so ignorant, but still a little bit. So any connections that, if you want to make them to me, by all means, please get a hold of me. I'm happy to do anything I can to make sure this is known.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate the audience. It's a pleasure.
Okay, Robin Thomas is going to update us on the compliance tool. Robin, there you are.
Thank you, Kara. Am I able to share my screen?
I believe so.
Okay. I have, can y'all see that, hopefully? Now I just have to see where I'm at. I'm going to try to respect your time. There are quite a few updates to the compliance tool. This will be, I have sent this to Amy, so she will attach it to the minutes. But there are quite a few updates going into effect on April 1st. The reason that there are so many updates, obviously the certification rules were updated back in the fall. So training requirements have changed. Several waiver rules have been updated, and some questions actually only have changes in them because of some rules, their numbers being changed, those types of things. So I didn't include those in here because it's just a change to a number, so that I was not going to bore you with those things. So reviews beginning April 1st, we'll be using the updated tools. There is some information in the guidance about changes that would be different than that 4/1/22 date. So I have included that information in here if it's different than that April 1st date. So the first one is just a little bit of guidance regarding medication administration. This is for agency and independent providers. It is not necessary to do a medication assessment for minors 17 and younger. I know that this is technically a county board responsibility, but sometimes providers do these or assist with these. So I wanted to make sure that that information was reviewed. And then also just a reminder that the assessment for individuals with J or G tubes or insulin must be completed by a licensed nurse. For adult day and vocab, you can see the strikeouts here. The information that's changed is about doing.
Robin?
Yes?
If you were meaning to share your screen, I don't think it's being shared, just to let you know.
Okay, thank you very much. I thought I had shared that. So let's try that again.
We can see it now.
Okay, great. I just must not have double clicked it like I thought I did. Thank you. So with the strikeouts here, it has to do with community integration training. And this has to do with the way that they've changed the training in the certification rule and pretty much tried to bring all that, the training requirements more all in line, really to make all services pretty much the same with a few exceptions. So they've changed a lot of what those requirements are. So the community integration is stricken in this question. Oops, now I can't get that to move. There we go. Okay. For this one, it's about the Director of Operations, which used to be called the CEO. There is now where the designee used to have to be authorized by DODD, they have changed this to where it has to be in writing. So you have to have something if your DOO is not going to be right there and actively involved. You just have to have something in writing who is going to be in charge while the DOO is not available. So if, you know, they're on vacation or, you know, off on sick leave for an extended period of time, there just has to be something in writing from the DOO authorizing who is in charge at that point in time. Oops, went too far. This is a brand new question. It's been in rule for quite some time, but they finally added it into the tool that is the provider's current physical address, telephone number, and email address identified in PSM. So this is in an effort to make sure that we as reviewers are able to find providers, because you would not believe the amount of time that we take trying to track people down. I am getting ready to, the beginning of next week, send a provider for sanctions because I am not able to make contact with that provider for a review because the information that is in PSM is not up to date. So that is something that is extremely important to make sure that is kept current, because that is the information that reviewers use to contact providers for compliance reviews. It's the information DODD uses for any information that they send out. It's what is in PSM.
Robin,
So,
what is PSM? I don't know that acronym.
Sorry, Provider Services Management. It's the provider portal where you go in to do certification.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Sure. A question for agency providers that has been updated. A couple things in this question. You will see that where it says background checks, the checks has been marked through and it's been changed to investigations. This is for internal compliance within your agency. I think some providers were thinking that all their compliance needed to, their internal compliance needed to discuss was the actual background check itself. And this actually should include your background check and your registry checks. So it needs to include all of those things and not just the background check itself. So your BCI check or your FBI check, it needs to include all of those 7 registry checks that you also do. And then you will see highlighted, your internal compliance program now needs to include information on management of individuals' funds as part of your internal compliance process. Some additional guidance on Ratback. The question on, oh, and I apologize, this is for agencies, obviously. If you get notified of a Ratback hit, what did you do when you were notified that one of your employees had a hit on Ratback? So the guidance for this is you should have access to an entitled rap sheet, and you need to show evidence of what you did with that. If it didn't involve a disqualifying offense, if it did, what did you do regarding that? So you need to have information about what you did if someone got a hit on their rap sheet. So make sure you put that information in an employee's personnel file. For independent providers, This also shows up later for agency providers. I didn't combine this question and I should have. They've changed this question around just a little bit. When selected by someone to provide services, the question was, did you meet with a representative of the county board prior to providing services? They've changed this to just do a little more clarification. After being selected by an individual, but prior to providing services, they wanted to make sure that the provider met with the county board to discuss the responsibilities, what's important to and important for the person, service documentation, and billing for services. These used to be all separate questions. It included the billing. Did you do the billing training? All of these were broken out. So this is all just grouped together, making sure providers are meeting with the county, understand what it is that they're supposed to do, have information on billing and doing service documentation. So they wanted to make sure that this all just was grouped together and all of it made sense to meet with the county when they're selected, but prior to providing service. This is the change in annual training, making sure that the person-centered planning, community integration, et cetera, was taken out. Now, understand that the question right now, reviewers are still looking at information from 2021. So they're still going to be looking at MUI rights, person-centered planning, community integration, self-determination, self-advocacy from 2021. So this question is still going to have those things in it. The requirements for training have changed for 2022. So the new requirements are in place. Independent providers for the 2 hours that are in My Learning, and then 6 hours of additional training in components of quality care, positive behavioral supports, and health and welfare, I believe. But we're not going to be reviewing those things, looking for those things until 2023. For agency and independent providers, you will see this entire thing is marked out because this question was taken out about career planning or individual employment supports. It's the training question because, like I said, all of the training has been kind of simplified for everyone doing the same thing. So they took out this question. Then for agency providers, this is some clarification on currently what we're doing around high school diplomas and GEDs. Right now, we're only looking for high school diplomas and GEDs for DSPs who are certified to administer medication. And right now, agencies can employ DSPs who don't meet education requirements without requesting a rule waiver until the end of September. This is regarding the vagus nerve stimulator, EpiPen, over-the-counter medications. Clarification on this is for staff without MedAdmin and staff who do have MedAdmin certification. Both staff with and without MedAdmin are required to have training on these things if they are going to be doing them. It's just that staff without MedAdmin can also do them. But staff with Cert 1 still have to have training on these things if they're going to be doing them. They have to have the training prior to doing it. Has to be done by a licensed nurse or DD personnel with the health-related activities and prescribed med certification has to be used during using the department-approved curriculum, or EpiPen training can be part of a first aid curriculum. That is also acceptable. That is not in this guidance, but we were directed on that recently. The reason I have an independent in parentheses is that these tasks can also be family delegated. They you don't have to have, you know, med cert for them. This can be family delegation for independent providers. Okay, here's another new question. This is about the written training plan that is now required based on the new certification rule for agencies. This is where you have to have a written training plan for the director of operations, supervisors of DSPs and DSPs, and if you have volunteers. This went into effect January 1st. So you have to have your training plan in effect. Make sure it's consistent with the needs of the individuals, best practice and requirements of the certification rule. What's in Appendix A and Appendix C. It describes the method used to establish competency of DSP supervisors and DSPs in the areas of training, and it needs to be updated every 12 months. Identifies who's responsible for arranging and providing training and the projected timelines for completion of the training. I believe there may have been a sample somewhere on the DoD website. I did not get an opportunity to take a look to see if that was on there, but you do have to have a training plan. This is information on, this question is regarding the training that you have to have. This is obviously kind of straight out of the rule for agencies, what you have to train your staff in and when it needs to be done. So I have this, there was so much, I had to put it on 2 slides. All of the things that are required for training your staff. And they've kind of traded, you know, switched it around a little bit. There's more on the training question. If you look through this, you'll see some of this ISP training in another question. And then the next one is on the individual specific training from the service plan regarding what's important to and important for the individual. So that's where it pulls out from that last question and puts it into, did they receive training on the service plan and what's important to and important for. Now, they've changed up a little bit on supervisory training. There used to be very specific things under what supervisors needed to have within 90 days of becoming a supervisor. Now it says just training on all relevant duties and responsibilities of being a supervisor. That went into effect on 9/1/21. And it's up to each agency to determine what those relevant duties and responsibilities are for their supervisors. So depending on what services your agency provides, you can determine what it is you think your supervisors need to have in their training once they become a supervisor. And here, once again, this guidance is a little different than what was for independent providers, but it's the training that the DSPs need to have annually. And again, it reflects the questions for what used to be in effect Now the new training needs to be happening this year, and reviewers will be looking at what previously was required throughout this year. And then starting in 2023, we will be looking at what the new requirements are from then on. So we'll be looking at, 2021 training requirements. And then starting next year, we'll be looking at, did you start having your staff start having the updated training? For day waiver services, again, this question was taken out. And again, everybody kind of has those same kind of training requirements, with a couple of services still having some specific things that they're required to have. For day services, are in-person day waiver services provided in a non-residential setting, and they wanted to clarify that virtual support could be provided in the person's home, but at this point, the virtual support service was the only one that could be done through the person's home at this point. They wanted to talk about provider-owned or controlled settings. There was some specific information regarding provider-owned or controlled. I don't think I highlighted all of this. These were all highlighted regarding what a provider-controlled or provider-owned setting meant, particularly when you're talking about shared living or licensed settings. There was some very specifically spelled out information about these definitions. So that guidance was really extremely spelled out, and I don't believe it had been before. I don't do licensed settings, so I don't recall if it was all in there before, but I know making sure that, there were no rights restrictions imposed, making sure that what affiliated with the individual's agency provider meant, regarding the landlord, what those relationships could and could not be. So there's some very important information in there to make sure you review. Okay, I went through that pretty quickly. So are there any questions? I don't know if there were any in the chat. I didn't get a chance to look at that. Let me see if I can pull that up. Okay. All right. If not, I'm done.
Robin, appreciate it. Okay, next, and yes, we will have a copy of this slides to be able to send out. Thank you, Robin, for sharing that. Next on our agenda is technology first. And while Robin, if you don't mind to stop sharing your screen, because I know that THS is next and they will be talking about their technology and how they've used technology. Technology first rule. They've been talking about technology first rule for some time, and I know that they just presented most recently to DODD. DODD has given the notice that its intent to adopt the following rule of the administrative code on a permanent basis on or around April 14th. And the purpose of the technology first rule aims to help people learn more how to use technology to improve the quality of their life. So we have THS, and I believe we have Leslie and Jimmy on the call today. And then I know Ron Smith here at Butler County has worked very closely with THS. And so I will let you three take it away and present. If you guys have things that you need to share, feel free to share your screen and present on technology.
Sure. Thanks, Kara.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Jimmy, everyone. says James, go by Jimmy. I guess it's just like a formal thing. I put James in there, but I work for THS Remote Supports, and we provide technology and remote supports supervision using that technology. And somewhere on your screen, left, right, up, down, I don't know where Leslie is, but Leslie, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Leslie Tillman. I work with THS Remote Supports, and I cover Butler County. So if you have any referrals for us, please contact me. And Jimmy's going to do a slideshow. So at the end of that, he'll have a little code with our name and information.
Yeah, so let me share my screen here. And hopefully is it sharing for everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Sweet. So THS Remote Supports, we're based out of Cincinnati, but we have individuals served all across Ohio and in other states now. Our whole goal in what we do is it's multifaceted. We're going to help the individuals and increase their independence, stay safe. But what a lot of people don't realize is the other side of that is how we help HPC companies and providers. So hopefully we can educate and go over some things today. We do have a YouTube channel. I've got the link up top. It's youtube.com/C for channel /THS Remote Supports. Lots of videos on there you can watch. If you're interested, subscribe. You'll get notifications if we submit something new or put anything out. But we'll get started. So one common misconception is that my individual doesn't have alone time, that sort of a thing. Well, remote supports is also a version of staffing. It's a version of supervision. It's just done from afar. So that's one thing that we always try and educate and explain to people, that it's not considered alone time. We do many of the same things that a direct care professional does, just without the physical aspect of it. It can increase a person's independence because there's not a staff member there doing things for them when they really can be doing things, or they can be learning to do things. And if they need help, prompts, guidance, they say for cooking, then we can walk them through a recipe. We can say, okay, well, now set a timer and your pasta will boil for 8 minutes, that kind of thing. And we can walk them through steps similar to what a DSP could do in the home. A huge benefit, like we talked about, is we want to help those HPC companies. I'm sure everyone feels the staff shortages, and it's talked about all the time, and the funding helps. Well, this is another way to help you financially as an HPC company. So if you as a staffing agency are certified to provide remote supports with paid backup, then you can get paid for this. If you're not certified, we can help you to get certified. Really pretty easy. We have got like a how-to guide that will walk you through it. But as Robin was talking about PSM earlier, you'd go through that system, and really you just click one box on there and you'd apply for that certification, and you just wait for them to add it to your provider credentials. But how that works is that relationship between remote supports vendor like us and an HPC company would be that the HPC company bills the full waiver rate for remote supports with paid backup, and that's at $10.24 an hour. And then us as a remote support vendor would send the HPC company an invoice for our portion of that at the end of the month. And our portion of that is $6.88 an hour. So you'd keep the $3, and I'm rounding 40 cents. It's some pennies difference there, change for yourself. So financially, you would get paid for when we are providing the remote support service. You're being paid so that in the off chance that somebody does need to be sent in for in-person assistance, that you can do that. The state average for remote support dispatches from us is actually under 2 times a year now. It used to be 2.2 times a year, and we've actually now gotten down to 1.8 times a year. So it is not all that common. Less than 2 times a year, we ask for somebody to come in. So 363 days out of the year, you're going to get paid and nobody needs to do anything. The staff shortage portion for you is also beneficial when it comes to overtime, beneficial when it comes to administrative time of scheduling staff, training staff, those sorts of things. And then the benefit to the individual is it reduces costs to their waivers. They might be able to use waiver dollars for something else they might not have had the funding for before. And if it saves money to the waiver in the state, then they could potentially give more waivers out as well. So big question we get is, what are the common areas of need? What can you really do? And these are the most common things that we help people with. So we get lots of questions about seizure monitoring, visual reminders, check-ins on the person. We also sometimes call those welfare checks. Supportive listening, communicating will be a two-way talk device or a way to communicate with the individual. And they can reach out to us whenever you have it scheduled, to be very much just like what a DSP would be. If they're feeling anxious, we can chat with them. If they need an answer to a question, then that's what we're there for. We have GPS systems, we have elopement systems, help people get back home if they get lost, those sorts of things. Various ways to help with cooking and fire emergency safety, entry and exit safety, bathroom monitoring, fall detection can kind of go along with bathroom monitoring. We can do some like flood and overflow monitoring also in like kitchen sink, water areas, medication assistance, environmental weather alerts, tornadoes, floods, those sorts of things. We can get those alerts based on what zip code that they're in. Noise aggression monitoring. If somebody's yelling or breaking things and there's a decibel level that was too loud, then we can get that alert that somebody might be upset, and we could call in and see what's going on and see if we can help in some way. Motion monitoring, get out of bed, but maybe they haven't come back to bed. And recently we've had a lot of situations where we work alongside of a staff. So it could be a reduction from 2-on-1 to 1-on-1, but then also have remote supports in place, or remote supports be a way that prevented it to increase to a 2-on-1 staff situation. And that's a very important piece of it. To do it alongside of staff, it would need to be either a reduction in staffing or to prevent an increase in staffing with the rules in place currently. So how do you do it? What's the steps? It all starts with Leslie. She said she's your rep there in Butler County. She goes to all those consultations. She can come in person, she can do them digitally, whatever you might need as a team. But invite us out. The first step is that meeting. You tell us different areas of concern you have for that person. And then we take that information and we recommend what kind of equipment might help. Once we recommend what might help, we could give you a couple different options for each thing, and really you pick what's best. We take that and we program it into our system, and we'll go over that in a little bit with protocols. So the next question we get asked a lot is, well, how's the internet set up? And some people may be familiar that the waiver used to pay for internet with remote supports, and it no longer does. And really, a lot of our systems don't even require internet. So we have several homes that use pieces of equipment that don't need internet in their house. For the ones that do require internet, that's usually for somebody who's requested a camera. And along with cameras, one of the common misconceptions is you have to have a camera, and you don't. We have hundreds of people that don't use cameras. It's all about what the person wants, what the person needs. If you need us to visually verify something, that's usually when we're going to need a camera. Do you need us to be able to see what clothes somebody was wearing if they left the home, so that we can report, what they had, or when somebody came into the home, we need to see who it was, that sort of a thing. But it's all based on that person's comfort level and needs. There's never cameras forced into any home. So on the internet setup, right now, the waiver does not reimburse it. So it's set up for the individual to pay for internet. But if they cannot afford internet, THS remote supports will pay for internet if they receive 30 hours a week of service or more. We will cover that cost for them, and they no longer have to do that. For situations where they cannot afford it, if they can't afford it, we would still want them to cover it, of course. Protocols. This is what I mentioned before. So once we give you those recommendations on the equipment, what to choose, and you decide which way you'd like to go, we're going to create these protocols. And our software is custom made, our own developers. And ultimately, I'll give you an example. I like to use the doors as an example because it's a very common setup. So the front door opens, that alert gets assigned to one of our staff. And it tells them a statement of what to do, and then it asks a yes or no question. And it guides them through this process. And ultimately, we've set it up this way to eliminate human error. So our staff don't have to remember, well, which Jimmy is it who's safe in the community? Which Jimmy is it who needs help with cooking? It tells them every single time that that sensor is triggered. So we don't have to worry about, did I accidentally forget or think this was a different person by mistake because their name is so similar? No, that won't happen here. So we're all about trying to eliminate the human error. And I'll actually show you a video of how this might work later. But ultimately, we create the protocols based on what you tell us to do. You can change them as needed. So one example we get changed a lot is we start with a lot of people with what we call start of service calls. At the beginning of our shift, we call in, hey, Jimmy, how you doing? How was your day? That's awesome. And we start to build a rapport. Well, 4 or 5 months down the line, we already know that person. And like, you don't have to call me anymore. Like it becomes a bother to the person. They just want to live their life, you know? So we can change those things at any time and get that revised. We fill out what we call a remote supports worksheet. We send that off to the team. You review it. You say, yeah, you understood me correctly. We can include very specific things, certain scripts of ways to approach things when we're talking to an individual, or things to avoid. Anything that's important, we can put in there. Okay, some unique features of remote supports. So the protocols I talked about, we respond the same way in that setup every time. Using the devices can actually help responses be faster. So one example we like to use is seizures. Oftentimes if someone's having a seizure at night, and even if there's an awake staff, well, you might not hear the seizure. You might not know the person had a seizure. And if you're going in and check on them, let's say hourly, you might miss something and you might not be aware. Something like this can tell us immediately. So sometimes, and oftentimes, responses and knowledge things can be done much quicker. Remote supports also can be used to turn on at any time to cover shifts and last minute notice. So ice storms, 3 or 4 weeks ago now, Thursday and Friday, we covered, I think it was 170, maybe 180 shifts, I forget now, just on those 2 days where people called us up and said, hey, staff can't make it in, they're stuck, whatever the situation may be, or maybe it was they're just going to be late. Maybe there's like an hour late or 2 hours late just so they got there safely. We can adjust these schedules to make sure the person's still supervised and safe until the staff member can get there. What we've also found is this really helps staffing agencies' retention for staff who work second shift. Because if somebody doesn't show up at night, and that second shift staff previously would be stuck there until somebody came to relieve them, now they don't have to worry about that. Because if we're providing a shift at night, well, they're never going to not be relieved, if that makes sense. they can get home to their families and do things. So we actually find that a lot of agency staff are happier when this is like a supplement to them. And then we've got lots of data. So we can say, hey, somebody is getting up at night a bunch now, and they used to only go to the bathroom maybe one time a night, and why are they going 5 times a night now? So we could trigger, hey, something needs looked into. Maybe they have a UTI, maybe something's going on with medications and they just can't sleep well, those sorts of things. Okay, some frequently asked questions. Do we replace remote supports in the home? And the answer is no. We partner with you as an HPC company, and we work as you, as an offshoot of you. So this is, you're providing remote supports with paid backup. You choose to work with us or not. You tell us a schedule the team agrees on, and we are an extension of you, basically. So if there's time where you need staff, then the staff will be in there. And if it's time where you might not actually need an in-person staff, then that's when we can help out. If remote supports doesn't work, we can just uninstall. There's no requirements for lengths of times, anything like that. The equipment is leased, so there's no big chunk of money that the waiver is stuck paying or anything of that sort. And we can adjust back, of course. Are remote support staff trained? Absolutely. Just like a regular HPC agency, go all through the trainings, individual information specific. And then of course, we've got our software, which tells them what to do for each person, for each type of sensor. If they need physical assistance, that's when we would call you and say, hey, looks like Jimmy's getting sick tonight. He's thrown up a couple of times. Somebody needs to come in and he says he needs help getting cleaned up, type of a thing. Obviously, like I said earlier, it's not a common thing, so you're not going to get bothered all that much. Our entire goal is to help support that person without needing you to go out. So everything we do is what ifs. Okay, what if this happens? What if that happens? So hopefully we can handle all of those what ifs as all the way up to the point where that person really is needed. If your person needs medications, so we can help in various ways with medications, with medication technology and dispensers. Those dispensers need filled by the appropriate person, either nurse or pharmacy, or if the person's self-administering, then they can help fill it themselves. Cameras required. I actually went over that a little earlier. Definitely not required. It's a common misconception. So remote supports this year, we're slated to do almost 1.7 million hours of remote supports this year. That's how many hours that direct care staff will not be needed in these homes that we currently serve. And there's still a staffing crisis. So every hour that I don't know how many full-time job this is, but every hour you would have us work would be added to this, and hopefully save overtime and save costs on those agency burdens. We're the largest remote support provider here in Ohio, currently serving over 450 people here in the state. So a couple of things that makes different. That software I talked about earlier, this is actually a little video that we can explain what happens. So I'm actually going to pause this right here. This is what happens when an alert gets assigned to our staff. It might be a little small on your screens, but normally it would be the full screen. But this case detail here, this is just a demo for John Doe in our smart home. So it just says the front door was opened, but down here are these case actions. This is what's going to tell our staff what to do. So check the video feed, determine if anyone entered or left. Right there, the cameras are quick and easy to get access to. And this is our smart home and some empty offices. They see that nobody's here. So they're going to mark, yeah, somebody did enter or exit because nobody's home, so they must have exited. Our system requires they document along the way. So we've got a whole trail from start to finish of what's happened, and it timestamps everything. So once they click submit, they're on to the next step, and they're talking about reaching out to the person, locate and make contact with the individual. Does the individual need assistance? This is where it calls them based on whatever forms of contact they might have in their system. Could be a two-way talk device, could be a cell phone. It could be some people who need like sign language communication, then we've got interpreter systems. So whatever way they communicate is what we can adjust to. Text messaging, all those sorts of things. Once they talk to them, they're gonna, let me skip forward a little bit. They're gonna document here, spoke to the person, didn't need assistance type of a thing. But you might not be able to see, it's really small. The last step they submitted shows that it was timestamped on here. So every time they submit the next step, it timestamps everything. Everything our staff do is tracked and timed. I'll even go back to the very beginning here. I'll show you this little acknowledge button up here. Once an alert is assigned to one of our staff, even clicking this acknowledge button is timed. If our staff don't click that acknowledge button within 10 seconds, it alerts our supervisors. And our supervisors on shift then can be communicating, why haven't you acknowledged this? Why haven't you started on it? Maybe they didn't hear a ding, maybe they didn't see their screen flashing, those sorts of things. So everything's tracked, timed, very important for fast, efficient responses. And if we go back to the end, you'll see where they documented, this is what we call a resolution note. So this is the very last step. So we document along the way. And on this last step, we document an overall synopsis once we are completely finished helping that person, of what we did and how we helped. So that's a little bit about our software. Backup systems. So we have in our monitoring center, each station has a battery backup. Each terminal, if power were to go out, would be powered by that battery backup. And within 5-6 seconds, our generator would kick on, and then the whole floor would have power again. So we'll never be out of power because of that setup. Additionally, our internet lines are battery backed up and on the same floor for power. But we have 3 lines of internet. So we have 2 underground, one from northbound, one from southbound, and one on a pole. So if one line gets cut or the pole gets hit by a car, we still have the other lines of internet. So ultimately, it's all about redundancy. We want to be functional so that you can rely on us. You don't have to worry about any calls of, hey, system's down type of things. It just won't happen. Next is the systems in the homes. So if the system requires local internet, we will use that internet. But if the internet fails at our own cost, we have commercial grade hotspots. So it will automatically detect that the local internet has failed or is down for whatever period of time, and will kick over to the cellular backup. Again, we have local power, and then we have battery backups. Those battery backups in the system, depending on what the person's equipment is, can last between 24 and 40 hours. So we will have time to know power's out. Tornadoes that went through Dayton a couple of years ago, we still served people for 16, 20 hours while the power's out, and then realized, okay, this is more of a long-term situation, and then a couple of them went to hotels. Just because they wouldn't really have power in their place for a week, something like that. So we at least can still function for quite a while. It's not a super time sensitive thing of, hey, power's down, you got to send somebody. Again, this is, we want to be up and functional so that you can rely on us. So we also have a community portal. Each county board and each HPC company that we work with will have their own community portal. You'll be able to see the individuals we mutually serve, how we're doing, when we're doing everything, schedules, alerts, reminders. You'd be able to look in the accounts here. This is just going to show like some of our smart homes, Nice Hunger, Ohio State. We got the Medina County smart home. So you'd be able to look at the details, the information, in real time, 24/7 access. You could log in at 1 a.m. if you're bored enough to do that. You could do that. The really neat piece, if I skip forward some, is this case resolution note here. So in this case reports area, you'd be able to filter down to the person. So right here, it's all people. But if I wanted to click the THS Smart Home only, it filters it down to it. And then you can download this report, and you'd be able to go to an ISP meeting or talk to a guardian or the SSA on the team and go over what this is, and you could change the protocols with this if you wanted to change something. And like, hey, well, it looks like they're up a lot at night. Let's build in some check-ins, whatever it might be. So this is an open book to you. We're very transparent on what we do, how we do it in that partnership. So how do you contact us? Well, Leslie is L. Tillman at thsrss.com. If you are technologically inclined, you can definitely QR code scan right there, and it'll have a contact. And I've got James Finley, myself, Jay Finley, thsrss.com. We have a couple testimonials from a couple of HPC companies we work with here in Ohio. But really, that is our presentation. Really recommend you go to our YouTube channel, check some things out. I actually want to drop in the chat a link. I hate doing this because I was on a podcast lately, but I hate my voice. So I hate sharing this out. But there's a company up in Toledo named Friends for Life that we work with, and they do podcasts, and they invited us on. So that's their podcast we went to a couple of weeks ago. So feel free to listen to that. It is a good like 50, 60 minutes. So, but he keeps it upbeat and it's fun too. It's not just boring like what I just went through, I promise you. It's interesting. So I don't know if you have any questions. Leslie and I would love to answer them. Ron, also working at the county board, has worked with us a lot. There is the COG Smart Home over in Lebanon that Butler County is a part of. And if you guys ever needed tours, Leslie can take people on tours there or tours on our smart home that's in our office in Sharonville. It's probably actually closer to you guys than the Warren County. It might be about the same distance depending on where you're at actually, but either way, we'd love to answer any questions you might have. So if you've got one, shoot it in the chat, and maybe Ron can just chat a little bit about whatever he might have to say.
No problem. Thanks, Jimmy. Thanks. That was a good presentation. I'm always impressed with the THS's PowerPoints. They look way better than the ones that I create. But, you know, as a county board, I would just encourage all of especially the agency providers that are here in this meeting to really, really consider reaching out to Jimmy or even Leslie. They and even myself, we would be willing to sit down kind of like a one-on-one meeting to really discuss some things, to look at actual numbers and what homes you have and individuals that I mean, somebody is in your mind right now thinking like, ooh, maybe all of that on-site on-call staff that I'm using at that house, maybe it really isn't necessary, and remote supports could, you know, help you guys better utilize that staff person in a different location that is maybe has a higher need, and utilize some remote supports. And as Jimmy mentioned, if you become the paid backup, then there's actually a savings of not having to, you know, pay that staff person, along with a earnings revenue from actually billing the remote supports. So call them, email them. I'll put my email in the chat as well if you want to email me. It's been probably about 3 or 4 years, and we kind of had a blitz on our county, and myself, and it was actually one of Jimmy's supervisors at the time, Adam. We met with about 3 or 4 agencies that listened to us and let us explain this kind of in a more depth, more details. And it was kind of new then, so we didn't get a lot of positive, like, yes, let's do this. But as Jimmy mentioned, the more staffing crisis is just becoming a thing, this truly is a viable option. So consider it, ask questions, and let us know, and we'll meet one-on-one, okay? Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Ron. And you did talk about savings. So we've looked at the savings that we've had with our own direct care situations and savings other companies have had. And the average math, when we've looked at it with all of them, is about almost $18,000 per person that gets switched over for on-site on-call. So let's say you find 5 different setups that could switch over to remote supports. That's $100,000 swing. So it's not small amounts of money either. It can really, really add up. And that's the money that you as an HPC agency would see as swing from average costs savings from not having to have the staff during on-site on-call times. Obviously, some might be more, some might be a little less. It depends what your overtime's like and what your wages are like. But we see a lot of agencies, because that savings are so high, they take a portion of that, but then they pay their other staff in that home higher rates, just straight up give them a raise. And it's helped with retention a lot. And they're still making even more money because they've kept some of it for themselves administratively, paid their staff more money, and they're not worried about turnover as much.
Yeah.
So there's lots of different ways we can help out. Just love to chat with you. If you got any questions, reach out.
And I'll tell you one thing, and I'm trying to, when I hear it come up with SSAs in our county, is they'll listen to maybe a need or an individual and say, hey, that might be something remote supports could handle. I tell people, like, don't look at the situation and say, can remote supports accomplish this? Just get remote supports at the table. Get them at the meetings. Let them hear what the issues are, what the needs are, and they'll be honest. Hey, this is something that, Jimmy, you're honest, right? This is something I don't think remote supports can help. But a lot of times we're going to them when we think we have a situation that might be able to be handled by remote supports, which really I would like remote support providers, not just THS, but all of them, right, to be at the table more when we're discussing service needs.
We've run into a lot of situations where people have said, oh, this person will never be a candidate. And so they don't use remote supports. And then 6-9 months later, they start using remote supports and they flourish. People that were 2-on-1 now have 4 hours a day of drop-in services. The rest are remote supports. We have situations, there's one in particular in Dayton. There's a lady in a wheelchair who I always talk about this because it's astounding, but she went through 98 staff in 18 months. And we talked about doing remote supports, and this was 5-6 years ago. And the team said, no, she's in a wheelchair. She needs the staff there all day, every day. And we said, well, but why? Why does she need the staff? What are they doing? Well, if she slides out of her chair and falls, okay. When she does that, she slides out of her chair during transitions. Okay, but she doesn't actually fall. It's a slide, so she's safe. It's all about us knowing that. Getting pressure sensors in her chair that she's out. Getting a wearable button she can push. Well, she might not want to wear it. She might not be compliant. Well, okay, we have buttons on every baseboard in every room. She can crawl, she can roll, and she has done those things. Well, she started using remote supports, and she's been on it for 3.5-4 years now. And she just has the same consistent staff and remote supports all the time. She's happier. She no longer runs her wheelchair into staff. She doesn't pour water on them when they're sleeping at night. She doesn't take her rabbit feces and throw it at them. I mean, the change, the complete 180, she was just screaming, I don't want you in my space. And it's just all about finding a way to keep those areas of concern, supervised. So that's all I've got. Thanks for allowing us to chat. I know PowerPoints are not the most interesting thing, but Ron said we try and make them a little flashier so they're not as boring as normal. Hopefully you enjoyed it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. We appreciate you attending. And I know we are short on time, and actually we've gone over, so I appreciate your willingness to stay on. So we will get right to the rest of our presentation. So Darren is going to go through the provider feedback.
Just as an update, at the end of last year, we updated our satisfaction surveys, feedback surveys. I just dropped one in the chat. It's specifically for providers. It'll also be in the minutes. We changed it so it's a bit more efficient on how you can give us feedback on all of our departments. There's also 2 other surveys I'd like you to know about. One comes out via the SSA department whenever there's an annual plan or a revision. When the plan's sent to you, there's also a satisfaction survey in there, and that's different from this one. The one from the SSA are the same questions the individual and the family members get. So the SSA department would really like your feedback on all those things as well. And then the last survey is in all of our email addresses. That's one if you've got a specific thing you want to tell us about. That one's just an open text box, really, of just, hey, I've got this feedback. So those are the 3 surveys that we have for you guys. And we always appreciate your time completing them. Feedback is very important to us. Thank you. Back to Kara.
And then quickly, provider relief payments. I'm sure you've read quite a bit about this. So we're just going to add that information in the provider information that's going to come out by Friday. So I'm not going to go into that. And then also I'm going to skip down on the PNM rollout. So just refer to the details in the provider minutes. Again, we'll send that out by Friday, and I'll let Darren wrap it up.
Yeah. Also in the minutes, there'll be a little blurb about kind of jumping off on the back of what Robin said about agency providers and the training requirements. DoDD have created a template for you guys that also makes it a little bit easy. So that's an option for you to use. Details in the minutes. And to finish, we just got some trainings that are coming up. In the minutes, there'll be flyers and links on how to sign up, but there's the Healthcare Advisory Committee. They're going back to being in person. It's in Columbus on April 27th. Also, the SWOCOG are doing their Leadership Academy again this year. It's different topics from last year. It's really good. In the morning, the topic will be focused for your staff, and then in the afternoon, it's designed for your supervisors. But it's the same topic, just slightly different content. And then the other training that we know about is the DoDD OSAS, so the Office of System Support and Standards. They're doing virtual meetings now every month. It's the last Thursday of the month from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. And each session is going to be themed on different areas. On March 31st, they're going to focus on personal funds. And in April 28th, it's going to be about service documentation. These sessions are really good. About half of it is them presenting about the topic, and then the other half is really you guys just asking questions. And it's pretty cool to be able to ask the OSAS standard people, and they're all there from all the regions, to ask them directly the questions you want to get answered. It's kind of really cool. And then, yeah, just to wrap up, thanks for attending. Our next provider meeting will be on May 18th. Kara, anything else?
Yeah, no, I just want to let you know that we appreciate all you do for Butler County. And if there's anything that we can be of support to, most definitely reach out to any of us, at anybody at Butler County DD, certainly, but certainly in provider relations, myself, Darren, or Amy. I think you know how to get in touch with us, but if not, all of our contact information will be in the provider information that'll come out by Friday. And don't forget to turn in your, I want to see the reimbursements. Please send me back those applications for reimbursement. I want you guys to take advantage of that while it's available. And if there's any questions or if you need help, I will complete the forms for you. I will do it on the phone with you. Please get those forms back to me, because I would love nothing more for you to take advantage of that. So have a great day. Have a great week. I'll see you soon. And thanks for joining. Take care.